Welcome back. I'm glad you're able to join me for the next stage of your biology journey, brought to you exclusively by E-studylab. Today we begin exploring one of the most fascinating questions that science has ever asked. Why do living things look the way they do? And how are those patterns passed from one generation to the next? Over the next 2 sessions, you and I will be stepping into the world of genetics, the study of inheritance. By the time we're finished with this topic, you should be comfortable recognizing how traits are passed on, understanding why variation exists, and explaining the basic language scientists use when they talk about genes and heredity. For now, we'll take it slowly and build the foundation carefully. Let's begin with the idea at the heart of today's lesson: inheritance. Inheritance is simply the process by which characteristics are passed from parents to offspring. Your eye color, your height, the shape of your face, even the sound of your voice. All of these carry hints of those who came before you. And inside every one of your cells is a biological record of that story. The word we use for the science that studies this process is genetics. Genetics is the branch of biology that helps us understand why children resemble their parents, why some traits appear to skip generations, and why no two individuals are exactly the same, even in the same family. It also helps explain how genetic diseases arise, how species evolve, and how scientists are now even able to edit genetic material using technology. But let's not run ahead just yet. To understand genetics, we first need to meet someone who laid the foundations for everything we know about inheritance. His name was Gregor Mendel. Mendel was not a modern scientist with computers and laboratories. He was a monk working in a garden in the 19th century, armed with nothing but careful observation and extraordinary patience. He studied pea plants, not because they were glamorous, but because they were useful. Pea plants grow quickly, they can self-pollinate, and their traits are easy to observe. He noticed something remarkable. When he crossed plants with different features, tall and short, yellow peas and green peas, the results were not blended, as people once believed they might be. Traits did not mix like paint. Instead, they followed clear patterns. From these patterns, Mendel discovered that traits are controlled by units of inheritance, what we now call genes. You can think of genes as biological instructions. Each one carries information for building a particular feature, just like recipe steps in a cookbook. Some genes determine eye color. Others help shape bone structure. Others regulate growth. And many work together in complex combinations. But here's the important part. We don't have just one instruction for most traits. We usually have 2 forms of each gene, one from each parent. These forms are called alleles. Sometimes both alleles are the same. Sometimes they're different. And when they differ, one may be stronger in expression than the other. The stronger one is called dominant, while the less visible one is called recessive. And this brings us to Mendel's first great discovery, the law of segregation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is quite simple. This law says that when reproductive cells are formed, the two alleles for each trait separate. That means each parent passes on only one version, not both. When a child is formed, one allele from each parent comes together again. In other words, inheritance is not careless or random. It is precise, structured, and patterned. Mendel also discovered something else. He noticed that when he tracked more than one trait at the same time, such as height and seed color, they didn't always travel together. The inheritance of one characteristic did not necessarily affect the inheritance of another. This led him to the law of independent assortment. This law states that genes for different traits usually separate independently when reproductive cells form. That's part of the reason siblings can look surprisingly different from one another, even with the same parents. Now let's pause and consider what all of this means. If inheritance followed no rules, every generation would be chaos. If inheritance followed only one strict rule, every generation would look the same. Instead, nature found a magnificent balance: structure and variation, reliability and surprise. And that leads us to a word that you will hear often in genetics: variation. Variation is the reason no two people are exactly alike. It explains why one sibling might inherit dimples, while the other does not. Why skin tone, height, and facial features vary within the same family. Why some people inherit genetic conditions and others do not. Variation comes from several sources. Sometimes DNA changes slightly through mutation. Sometimes genes mix and rearrange in new combinations during reproduction. Sometimes people move between populations, carrying new traits with them. And sometimes chance itself plays a role. Together, these forces ensure that life is never static. It is always reshaping itself, generation by generation. Before we close this session, I want you to reflect on something. Everything you have learnt today applies not just to abstract science, but to you. Your body carries the biological decisions of countless ancestors. Your blood, your bones, your nervous system, all shaped by patterns older than history. And yet, you are also absolutely unique. A reminder that this lesson is protected by copyright and is owned by E-studylab. In our next session, we'll move deeper inside the cell itself, into the molecules that store this information and faithfully copy it across generations. We'll explore DNA and RNA, the language of life written in chemical form. And we'll begin to see how modern science has learnt to read that language and even rewrite parts of it. Take a little time today to notice similarities between yourself and your family. A gesture, a habit, a physical feature, a tone of voice. You are carrying a story written in biology.